Ghostly tales, yet mirrors of human life. Hey everyone! Welcome to Encountering Chinese, Ghostly Tales from Zhai. Today, I'm going to tell you a story called Zhang Aduan. In Weihui Prefecture, Hunan Province, there was a man named Zhai, young and reserved yet courageous and decisive in his actions. At that time, a prominent family in the area had a sizable estate where apparitions were frequently seen even in broad daylight, and family members had been dying one after another. Eager to sell the property at a low price, they sought a buyer urgently. Zhai, tempted by the cheap price of the estate, purchased it to live there. However, the estate was vast and sparsely populated. Weeds and wild plants grew densely around the pavilions and towers in the eastern courtyard, making it unsuitable for immediate habitation. At night, the family continued to be disturbed, with reports of ghostly sightings and cries. After over 2 months, a maid-servant died under mysterious circumstances. Shortly thereafter, Zhai's wife fell ill after visiting one of the towers in the early evening and passed away within days. The family was deeply frightened by these events and urged Zhai to move out promptly, but he refused. Now alone without a companion, Zhai languished in desolation, often deeply saddened by his circumstances. The maids and servants constantly whispered to him about the eerie incidents at home, which only served to further agitate him. In a fit of anger, he grabbed his bedding and went alone into the rarely visited tower to lie down, keeping a candle lit to see if anything unusual would occur. Zhai waited for a long time but observed no abnormal phenomena, eventually falling asleep there. In the middle of the night, Zhai felt someone's hand reaching into his blanket, touching him repeatedly. When Zhai woke up and looked, he saw an elderly maid. Her ears were curled, hair disheveled, and she was notably overweight. Zhai knew she was a ghost, so he grabbed her arm and pushed her away, saying with a smile, "I can't accept you looking like this." Feeling ashamed, the maid withdrew her hand and walked away with small steps. Shortly after, a young woman came out from the northwest corner. She had a charming and beautiful demeanor and came under the lamp, angrily scolding. "How dare this audacious scholar sleep so boldly here?" Zhai got up and smiled, saying, "I am the owner of this estate, waiting to collect rent from you." He stood up naked and tried to catch the woman, who was scared and fled hastily. Zhai quickly ran to the northwest corner, blocking her path, leaving her no choice but to sit on the bed. Zhai approached her and under the candlelight saw her beauty, like that of a celestial being, so he slowly held her in his arms. The woman smiled faintly and said, "A reckless fellow not afraid of ghosts? You might just be harmed." Zhai forcefully removed her clothes, and she didn't resist much. Later, the woman introduced herself. "My surname is Zhang, and my nickname is Aduan. I mistakenly married a dissolute man who was arrogant and cruel, causing me great sorrow and indignity. I died young and have been buried here for over 20 years. This estate is built upon graves." Zhai asked, "Who was the old maid who came earlier?" Zhang Aduan said. She was also a dead ghost serving me. If living people reside in the pavilion, the spirits in the graves cannot rest peacefully. Just now, I asked her to drive you away. She then asked, why was she touching me? Zhang Aduan chuckled and said, she was in her 30s when she died, never married, quite pitiful. However, her actions were too disrespectful. In short, timid people are teased by ghosts, but brave ones are not easily violated. By this time, the morning bell had already rung. Zhang Aduan dressed and got off the bed, saying to Qi, if you don't suspect, I will come again at night. At nightfall, Zhang Aduan indeed returned, and the two indulged in passionate intimacy, filled with joy. Qi said, my wife tragically passed away recently, and I can't find solace from my grief. Can you help me find her? Hearing this, Zhang Aduan became even sadder and replied, I have been dead for 20 years, and no one has ever remembered me, even just once. You and your wife shared a deep bond, so I will do my best to assist you. However, I heard she has already found a place for reincarnation. I don't know if she is still in the underworld. A day later, Zhang Aduan informed Qi, your wife is about to be reborn into a wealthy family. However, due to an unresolved matter from her previous life where she lost an earring and scolded a maid who subsequently committed suicide, she is still lingering in the underworld. Currently, she resides under the Medicine King Pavilion, guarded and unable to freely come and go. Yesterday, I sent the maid to bribe the guard, so perhaps she can come to see you. Curious, Qi asked. How can you move about so freely like this? Zhang Aduan explained. For those who died unjustly, as long as they do not actively go to the King of Hell to plead their case of grievances from their past lives, the King of Hell doesn't have the time to investigate every single one. As the night grew late, the old maid indeed brought Qi's wife to his room. Qi held his wife's hand with great sorrow, tears welling in her eyes, unable to speak. Zhang Aduan bid farewell, saying to the couple, you two have been separated for a long time, surely there is much to talk about. I will come back another night. Qi then asked his wife with concern about the case involving the maid who had committed suicide in her previous life. His wife reassured him, saying, it's no longer a problem, the case is nearly resolved. The couple embraced and cuddled in bed, reminiscent of their joyous times when his wife was alive. From then on, the couple frequently met each other. 5 days later, Qi's wife suddenly cried and said to him, tomorrow, I will be reincarnated in Shandong. I'm afraid it will be difficult for us to see each other again. I don't want to part with you. What should we do? Qi, upon hearing this, wept bitterly, unable to contain his grief. Zhang Aduan comforted them, saying, I have an idea that could temporarily reunite you. Both husband and wife stopped crying and asked Zhang Aduan what she had in mind. Zhang Aduan instructed Qi to take 10 bundles of paper money to burn under the apricot trees south of the hall, as a bribe for the officials escorting his wife's reincarnation, to delay her departure. Qi followed her instructions. That night, his wife came and said, "Thanks to Miss Zhang's idea, I can stay with you for another 10 days." She was overjoyed and insisted Zhang Aduan stay, and the three of them talked all night, from sunset to dawn, fearing time would pass too quickly. After 7 or 8 days, as the deadline approached, Qi and his wife cried all night again. They sought Zhang Aduan's help once more. Zhang Aduan said, "It seems difficult for me to find a solution this time. However, I can try again, but it may require 1 million coins from the underworld." She burned the specified amount of paper money again. That night, Zhang Aduan returned happily and said, "I persuaded someone to intercede with the officials escorting souls for reincarnation. Initially, it was difficult to convince them, but when they saw the money, they were moved. Now, another spirit has been sent in place of your wife for reincarnation." From then on, the couple could meet even during the day, but Qi had to keep the doors and windows closed and light candles inside the house. After more than a year had passed, Zhang Aduan suddenly fell ill. She experienced dizziness, confusion, and melancholy, as if frightened by ghosts. Qi's wife comforted Zhang Aduan, saying, "You have ghost sickness." Qi replied, "Miss Zhang has already become a ghost. What ghost could make her sick?" Qi's wife explained, "There are many things about ghosts that you do not understand. After people die and become ghosts, ghosts also fear their own kind, just as people fear ghosts." She wanted to summon a shaman for Zhang Aduan, but his wife said, "How can human doctors treat ghost sickness?" Old Mrs. Wang from the neighbor's house became a shaman in the underworld after she died. "I can go and call her. However, as soon as I leave this place more than 10 miles away, I will become weak and unable to walk. Please burn a paper horse for me." Qi followed her instructions. As soon as the paper horse was burnt, a maid appeared with a red-haired black-tailed horse and handed it to Qi's wife in the courtyard. Qi's wife disappeared in the blink of an eye. Not long after, Qi's wife returned riding on the horse with an old lady. She tied the horse to the porch pillar. The old lady entered the house and diagnosed Zhang Aduan's condition by holding her fingers. Then, she sat upright, shook her head, and finally fell to the ground. After a while, the old lady jumped up and said, "I am the Black Mountain King. This girl's illness is very serious. Fortunately, she met me, which is quite fortunate for her. The calamities she faced were due to her past actions, but it's okay, it's okay. After she recovers, the young girl must provide me with generous offerings. 100 taels of silver, 100 strings of copper coins, and a table of sumptuous feast, not a single item less." Qi's wife loudly agreed to each condition. The old lady then revived and shouted some more instructions to the patient before declaring the treatment complete. After finishing her treatment, the old lady prepared to leave. Qi's wife escorted her outside, presenting the paper horse to her, and the old lady happily departed. Qi's wife returned to the house to see Zhang Aduan, who seemed to be gradually recovering. The couple comforted her with kind words, but Zhang Aduan suddenly said, "I'm afraid I can't come to the human world again. Now whenever I close my eyes, I see vengeful ghosts. It's all destined." With these words, she began to shed tears. One night, Zhang Aduan's condition not only did not improve but worsened, nearing death. She curled up, trembling as if seeing something extremely frightening. She clung to Qi and lay with him, burying her head in his chest as if afraid of being caught. Whenever Qi moved, she would scream anxiously. This continued for 6 or 7 days, leaving the couple at a loss. Coincidentally, on that day, Qi went out and returned home half a day later, hearing his wife's crying. Alarmed, he hurriedly asked what had happened. His wife said that Miss Zhang had died in bed. When he uncovered the blanket, all he found was a human skeleton. Qi was overcome with grief and followed human burial customs to bury the skeleton next to the family's ancestral grave. One night, Qi's wife cried in her sleep. Qi woke her and asked why she was crying. She replied, "Just now, I saw in my dream that Miss Zhang came to me. She told me that her husband has turned into a vengeful spirit, resenting her relationship with you. He wants to prevent her from even becoming a ghost, so she asked me to perform a ritual for her." Early the next morning, Qi got up to prepare for the ritual, but his wife stopped him, saying, "Human efforts are not enough to help appease ghosts." She then left. After a while, she returned and said, "I have sent someone to invite monks. Please help me burn some paper money for these ghost monks as the ritual's cost." Qi complied. Just after sunset, the ghost monks had all arrived, conducting their ceremony with instruments and rituals identical to those on Earth. Qi's wife recited scriptures loudly, but Qi could not hear their voices at all. After the ritual, Qi's wife dreamed of Zhang Aduan coming to express gratitude, saying, "The grievances have been resolved, and the city god is willing to adopt me as his daughter. Please tell Qi for me." His wife lived at home for 3 years. At first, the family was somewhat afraid upon hearing about her, but over time they got used to it. When Qi was away, family members would still inform his wife through the window about household matters. One night, his wife cried and sobbed to Qi, "The bailiff who escorted me for reincarnation, news of his bribery and corruption has leaked out. The underworld is investigating this matter closely, and we may not be able to reunite for much longer." A few days later, his wife grew increasingly weak. She said, "Because I love you so much, even if it means being a ghost for a long time, I don't want to part with you due to reincarnation. But now, we are about to part ways forever. Is this all fate?" Qi anxiously asked if there was any solution. His wife replied, "I have no more tricks up my sleeve." Qi asked, "Will you be punished when you return to the underworld?" His wife said, "There might be slight punishment. But stealing life is a great crime. Stealing death is a minor crime." With that, she stopped moving. Upon closer inspection, her face and body gradually disappeared. Later, Zhi often lived alone in the desolate pavilion because he missed his wife. He hoped to encounter other ghosts who could help him meet his wife again, but this never happened. The family gradually became reassured as the courtyard ceased to be haunted. Alright. That's all for today's ghostly tale. Zhang Aduan. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Please also encourage everyone to comment and share more. We'll see you in the next episode.